Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It's actually a big week for the Patriots this week because the rookie mini camp is upon us. I'll be over there on Saturday at Gillette Stadium for first glimpses of Drake May in a Patriots uniform, throwing footballs to your Jalen Polks, your Javon Bakers, getting a look at Caden Wallace and the rest of the Patriots rookies. Meanwhile, the team has also opened its GM search. We talked about this a little bit with Phil on Tuesday, but we have a little bit more illumination on it as more people have passed through the doors. And we're going to get Mike Florio in here of Pro Football Talk to talk about the GM search, to talk about what's awry with this GM search in his eyes in terms of final say, also to talk about private equity and the notion that the NFL is closing in on granting the ability for private equity firms to invest in teams. How will that change the landscape in the NFL? And we're also going to hit on a little bit of the Kraft and Belichick tension as related by Julian Edelman on a podcast in which he had Drew Bledsoe in as a guest. Tension that you could cut with a knife, or actually the tension in that room, in the green room prior to the event, Edelman said, could cut flippin' glass. He did not say flippin'. We'll bring in Mike, though. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. It's Mike Florio. He's got a million bones to pick, as he always does. But first things first, let's get a PSA out there. You had yourself a colonoscopy this week. How you feeling?
Well, first of all, I don't have any bones to pick. Why do you think I have bones to pick? Why do I get this reputation? Just because I tell it like it is? People think I just walk around whining all the time?
I'm
whining about you calling me a whiner. How about that, Tom Curran?
You're a bone-picking son of a gun.
Right.
Let's get back to the colonoscopy, folks. I'm sure everyone's dying to hear about it.
Well, look, it's an important thing that we all need to do in order to take care of our health. And even if you have no regard for your own health, there are people, presumably, who care about you and need you financially, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. They need you to be alive. They need you to be around. And I remember resisting for years this idea of being, number one, knocked out, and number two, having a hose with a camera on the end of it shoved up my ass all the way until the end of my colon, like up, across, and down. I didn't want to do it. And I had some symptoms that suggested maybe things weren't 100% right. And it wasn't until I did a hemoccult test in conjunction with a physical that I had in 2011 that came back positive. It's the little blood smear test, and they look at it for blood. But I'm just saying, you smear your stool, and they look at it for blood. And if it's positive, you got a problem. So I had the colonoscopy. I got over my fear. I had to do it. There was a problem that needed to be checked out. Turns out I had Crohn's disease. Still have Crohn's disease. I've had 5 or 6 colonoscopies. I've lost track, frankly, because I get them periodically just to make sure everything's fine. I've had 2 polyps, had one yesterday, 6 millimeters, had one several years ago, 3 millimeters. And the thing about getting a colonoscopy, if they find that polyp, and some of them never become cancerous, some of them could become cancerous, you need to get them out of there. You need to get them tested. You need to get the cancer, if you have it, spotted early. The sooner you get it, the better. The sooner you find it, the better. The sooner it's treated. If you are at that point, it can save your life. You know, there are plenty of types of cancer that you can't catch them before it's a problem. This is one that can be caught. It can be prevented. It can save your life. And it can also save you having to go through the awful process of surgery, radiation, chemo, and all the things that would go along with having colon cancer. So hey, look, we have these platforms.
Yep.
We use them as best we can. And every time I have a colonoscopy, I use that occasion to tell anyone out there, if you need it, get it. It could save your life.
And I'm going to springboard that with my visit yesterday to my dermatologist, who I have to see frequently because I have had multiple squamous cell carcinomas scraped off my head from the bald spot, which, thank you, Dr. Leonard, was a good reason to go ahead and get a few plugs put in up there after that happened. But we had squamous cell cancer up there. We had it behind the ear. And then yesterday, my friend, Dr. Amy Chang, when I went and I said, "What's this, Dot?" She goes, "I don't like that." I said, "Yeah, it just showed up." She goes, "Oh, that's not good." Shaved it right off. We got a biopsy going there, but you have to stay ahead of it because it could be squamous. It could be melanoma. It could be basically benign. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. But if you're there all the time, doing those checkups for your skin, if you were out there in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, working outside like I was in lumber yards for construction companies, spraying lawns for landscape companies and taking care of lawns, you were exposed, and you probably weren't putting on sunscreen because you thought you looked like roast beef and prime rib if you got a little color on you. Well, you're regretting it now. So,
I go every year to the dermatologist for a full check. That's completely non-invasive. You just take your shirt off and he looks, and you show your legs, and you show any other areas you may have concerns about. And I had something on my leg a few years ago. They did the shave biopsy. They checked it out for melanoma, and then the scar, the mole grew back in the scar, and he was like, I don't like that. Did the punch biopsy. I've got a scar that I see all the time just to make sure it wasn't melanoma, and they sent it away. It was tested, some sort of special staining they do to make sure it's not melanoma, because melanoma is the worst. Melanoma starts as this tiny little thing that goes inward and creates all kinds of havoc. So that one's easy. You don't have to do the prep. You're not sitting on the toilet for 3 hours the night before. You don't get knocked out. You don't have any risk of complication. You just have a dermatologist look at you and see if there's anything that needs to be shaved off and taken a look at. So good for you to do that as well. That's another one that you can catch it before it kills you.
Yeah, and both of these are, once you get to a certain age, and that's 30 with the skin, people abuse it. So get a regular dermatologist who you can see regularly. Anyway, let's talk about football.
Yeah, what are we doing here? What is this? Is this some sort of a health podcast I wasn't aware of? But these are important things. Look, these are important things. And for the younger people out there, you eventually, if you're lucky, will be old like us. And I remember hearing about colon cancer when I was in my 30s, thinking, I don't have to worry about that. I'll worry about that later. And I never wanted to deal with it. And when you get to that age, you are going to have to deal with it if you want to get to the even deeper age, and if you don't want to go through a potentially horrible experience and possibly death from things that could have been prevented. All right.
Yeah. No one doesn't talk about health being the most important commodity that anyone owns over the course of their life. All right. Meanwhile, there's a commodity owned by the New England Patriots, by the Kraft family, and that is the New England Patriots. That's a segue right there. They're engaging in a GM search right now. We've gone over it multiple times, the head-scratching nature of the GM search, the fact that Elliott Wolf has ostensibly had final say throughout, and now they're going to execute this GM search, for which seemingly, Mike, they have satisfied the Rooney Rule. So whether they're bringing people in now to serve as assistants, it's very opaque. It's hard to figure out what in God's name they're doing, and it's not oozing a level of competency post-Belichick.
Well, look, there's a combination of factors at play here. You've got the Rooney Rule that must be complied with, and I don't know whether they've already complied with it going forward. There's two different phases that I think are relevant here. Pre-draft, when they made no changes to the front office after firing Bill Belichick. They elevate Gerard Mayo pursuant to the contract that was already in existence. The Rooney Rule wasn't relevant to him because the deal was already in place. That's permissible under league rules. That's happened in the past with coaches like Jim Mora, Jim Caldwell. Hasn't happened in a while, but it is permitted. As it relates to the front office, they basically just kicked the can through the draft on who was already there. And that's fine, as long as no one in any of those jobs was regarded as the chief football official in the organization. Now, the point I made today, Tom, you can't have it both ways if you're the Patriots. Either Elliott Wolf was in charge and they violated the Rooney Rule by not doing the proper search before giving him final say, or final say rested with ownership. It's one or the other. And if what the league told Doug Hyde of the Boston Herald earlier this week about the pre-draft, none of the titles changed, nobody was the top football person in the building pre-draft, then it can only be ownership. And this is relevant simply because there's so much chatter about how involved is ownership and the Apple documentary and who's claiming credit. So they're very sensitive about this right now. But the bottom line is this: They either violated the Rooney Rule by giving final say to Elliott Wolf before they should have without doing the search, or ownership was making the call, not just with Drake May, but with every draft pick, trades, non-trades, whatever it was. It's being made by ownership, which is retaining final say after Bill Belichick was let go.
Yeah, they on paper had final say, but allowed Elliott Wolf to pretend he was GM, dress up.
But they still had final say. They can't say they didn't have final say.
So they're going to say publicly, we didn't have final say, to not appear as if they're being puppeteers, but privately.
But then they violated the Rooney Rule. That's the thing. They can't get out of this maze, and they've painted themselves into this corner. If they say we didn't have final say, they violated the Rooney Rule. If they say they did have final say, then fine, you had final say. And look, this is one of the realities of the NFL. Every owner is involved. It's their business.
Of course.
These are big decisions. Only Jerry Jones is completely honest about his involvement because he's the GM. These other owners hide behind, they collectively like to hide behind, as you call him, the world's highest paid pincushion in Roger Goodell. And individually, they hide behind the coaches, the GMs, whoever has final say. But they're back there pressing buttons and pulling levers and working the marionette strings and getting what they want because it's their business. And that's fine. Just be honest about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem. They don't want to be openly candid that they're running the show, because then the question is, how long have you been running the show? And going forward, how extensively will you actively be looking over Elliott Wolf's shoulder and telling him what to do? Yeah,
and when Robert Kraft says at the owners' meetings, I want a top-flight quarterback, but our people are going to make the decisions on that. If you're an untitled GM with the hope of being the GM, you're basically on notice. Don't come out of this draft without a quarterback, please. Regardless.
Well, that's the other thing too. Hey, Tom, here's the thing. How are they going to hire anybody but Elliott Wolf? He just drafted their franchise quarterback. How do you hire anyone but Elliott Wolf? Hey, Elliott, thanks a lot for getting our franchise quarterback. Now we're going to give the job to somebody else. Oh, and it may be somebody who thinks Drake May isn't any good.
To me, and the compliance has traditionally landed with a woman named Robin Glazer, who works alongside Jonathan. And, when Gerard Mayo was hired, there was a lot made of a title change for Robin Glazer, which made it sound like she was going to be more intimately involved with some football decisions. Seth Wickersham, I believe, had a piece soon after that said that Jonathan Kraft and Robin Glazer were kind of overlording football. And the Patriots have labored, and I believe this to be the case, to say she's not doing football. She does compliance, she does contracts, she does a million things that don't have to do with evaluating players. All that said, they're now in this compliance abyss already, and it's as if they're screwing up a one-car funeral here. It didn't have to be this hard, did it?
No, it didn't. Just do your search before the draft. Do your search. I mean, they didn't have to do a coaching search, so it's not like their resources were spread thin. Do your search for a new GM, or whatever the title is going to be, the person who has final say approaching the draft. Do it before the draft. They thought they found a loophole, but they might have outsmarted themselves by painting themselves into this corner where, now that we're paying attention to it and trying to understand it, and I had gotten questions from people with other teams ahead of time, like, how did the Patriots avoid complying with the Rooney Rule? They put Elliott Wolf in charge. How did they not comply with the Rooney Rule before they gave him that position? And again, you can't have it both ways. Either they gave him final say and violated the Rooney Rule, or they didn't and they retained final say and they made the decisions. And you could say it's a distinction without a difference, because at the end of the day, all right, I'm making the final decision. I'm doing whatever Elliott Wolf recommends.
Yeah.
But still, I think if we're going to be honest with reality here, and we're going to press and see what was really happening, this all might just be elaborate cover for the fact that they thumbed their nose at the Rooney Rule. That might be the truth.
Which is really not what you're looking for when there's a lawsuit still pending from Brian Flores, a former Patriots employee, really, that circles around exactly this type of thing, the dog and pony show interviews. But again, it does feel as if they were trying to have it both ways. And I think that's been an ongoing thing. I said in the email to you as we were talking back and forth, Robert Kraft, I think, and the Patriots are trying to have it both ways with this search, but also I think Robert really wants to have it both ways with Bill. Bill Belichick, people out there who listen to this podcast who enjoy it and say, I'm doing a good job out here with this, they're not going to like this. Bill earned the firing that he got. after a 4-13 season, after 39-29 since Brady left, a 2-6 finish to that season. He earned it.
He earned it not as a
have him in
game
charge
day
of the night.
coach. He owned it as everything else. As a game day coach, he didn't earn it. As the de facto GM, I think that's how he earned it, don't you?
Well,
Drafting
no.
and developing and signing. Because I
It's
think
not-
game day, he
it's-
was still regarded as a pretty good coach.
Yeah, he was, but I think that reputation snuck through. I mean, we watched a team that played the Las Vegas Raiders last year and lost in some of the most humiliating circumstances I've ever seen, with one of their best players throwing it backwards 60 yards to a quarterback who then got stiff-armed into the netherworld as Chandler Jones went and scored. The coaching was not what it had been.
Well, and I'm talking about scheming. I'm not talking about instruction. Like Jacoby Myers had a brain
coaching,
fart.
part of the coaching revolves around hiring the other coaches too. When you have an offensive,
I got it. Well, yeah, 2022 was a shit show because of the whole Matt Patricia thing. That's where it went off the rails. And I think in that 10,000 word opus from ESPN from a few weeks ago about the final days of Belichick and the Atlanta stiff arm, the point was made that Robert wanted to fire Belichick after 2022, and Jonathan talked him out of it. They should have just fired him after 2022. And it was a fireable offense to put Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in charge of the offense.
But the coaching on game day, if you want to say, how am I going to stop that team from scoring, he'll hatch a great plan. But all the logistics around the coaching had been allowed to skate by, because I think Bill was basically of a mind that what's the worst that can happen. But in terms of the firing being earned, Robert Kraft did what in his heart of hearts felt was the right thing to do. He does want to have it both ways, though, with the mutual decision, the hug at the podium in January. And then again on Sunday. Look, I know Kevin Hart goaded them into at the roast that shot. Just do it sheepishly. Understand how Bill must feel as they do that. I don't really want to bury the hatchet here, but I have to. Don't lean into the microphone and tell everybody that he's the greatest coach of all time and nothing would have been accomplished without him, because you just fired him 3 months ago. So to me, that's wanting to have it both ways. And it was interesting to hear Julian Edelman say that in a conversation with Drew Bledsoe, you talked about it this morning on Pro Football Talk. Kraft walked into the green room where Belichick was regaling the group with stories, and the tension in that room, said Edelman, could cut bleeping glass. That was so awkward. And this again is this ongoing trying to have it both ways. Understand that it's not going to be as warm and fuzzy as you want. You can't dress it up. You fired the guy.
Do you believe that Robert showed up at the roast, where they had the toast? They had the toast at the roast. You got to have the roast before you can have the toast.
Who was the host?
Do you think he showed up at the roast where they had a toast in front of the host so that he would not be the butt of jokes? Because some of the things I've heard, when I saw Nikki Glaser explaining it to Howard Stern, they were like afraid to say anything about the massage stuff with Robert there. And when Jeff Ross did, Tom did the performative get up and go over and tell him, don't say that shit again. And none of the others said anything. And it's funny how it was a no holds barred roast, except where the holds were barred. Nothing about kids, nothing about Kraft. We'll make jokes that I think were on the wrong side of taste about Aaron Hernandez murders and suicide. We'll make jokes about those, but we won't make jokes about this. I think Robert went there in part to ensure that no one was going to poke fun and it wasn't going to become a thing. Like, Kevin Hart is short, Rob Gronkowski is stupid, Tom got divorced. Like, it was 3 jokes over and over and over again. And it did get a little bit old. And I think the Kraft massage stuff would have been lumped into that if he hadn't been there in person.
It seemed as if, just judging by the ongoing conversation throughout the night and Brady expressing thanks and people saying that he asked him, I would imagine he asked Robert Kraft to go. And Robert might have said, look, if I'm there, I'm going to get assailed with orchids of Asia commentary throughout the night. I'm not going to sit through that. I got grandchildren. I got family. I'm supposed to be an owner in the league, respected. I can't do that. And Tom might have said, look, I'll talk to them. We'll make sure it's a red line. We're not doing that. And it's probably going to be worse if you're not there. Right. So I don't think that, I would imagine that's probably more of how the conversation would go.
I got that. I buy that. I like that. But again, they can't call it no holds barred if there are going to be some things that they just aren't going to touch. You can't sell it as nothing was off limits if certain things were off limits. And maybe if the one thing that should have been off limits, because I don't know about you, the Hernandez stuff just felt weird to me. Making fun of a guy who committed suicide in prison seems like a bridge too far. And I like a good joke, and I'm not offended by things, and I believe in free speech, but it's also part of the freedom of speech to say, folks, I think it's not right to start digging at that.
I think
when the guy's not around to comment, and it just feels icky to be making those jokes.
But you don't hate OJ jokes.
Well, I don't hate OJ jokes, but I don't tell OJ jokes. But
you would tell an OJ joke. See, here's the thing: is the forum is different.
Let me say this. Let me say this. Hang on. Let me finish.
You're the guest.
Let me finish. I know it's your show, but I don't care.
But you're the guest.
If OJ Simpson had blown his brains out in the back of that Bronco the night he was driving around with a gun to his head, I think it gives you a different feel, a different vibe. And I don't know when, look, nothing's ever off limits. I mean, hell, Brady made a 9/11 joke and people were like, whoa.
It wasn't a 9/11 joke. It was a jet joke.
Okay. 2 jets slamming into something in New York in September of 2001. Okay. My point is OJ jokes have a different feel altogether if the end of his story was he puts a bullet in his brain in the back of the Bronco that night in June of 1994. I'm just saying.
The reason I cringe.
My point is some things are going to be off limits and some things aren't. Either everything's off, I just feel like more things should have been off limits if we're going to make exceptions for Tom Brady kissing his son in that documentary from Facebook from several years ago, or anything and everything about Robert Kraft, which is a very public situation that everybody knew about and everybody was talking about.
The reason the Hernandez thing made me recoil more is because they were teammates and had already been on the record. They're not just roasters whose job it is to do that. They have been deeply affected emotionally. We talked to them, we listened to them, we saw them deeply affected as individuals who are public individuals, expressing their remorse, their sadness, their sympathy for Odin Lloyd and the family. For Hernandez himself, not understanding exactly where they personally could have gone wrong. So then to see them put on another mask, it deflates somewhat or calls into question somewhat their sincerity in the other ways. Now, it's dark humor. I'm Irish, you're Italian. We all engage in dark humor.
Suicide jokes, just generally, given the extent to which
it has
an epidemic.
To me, it bothered me more. The suicide stuff was difficult to hear. The 3 different ones. But I think to me, it was harder because they were teammates. And I think the Gronk's reaction when they cut to him was the most, that was a reaction I had. Oh, that
like,
too.
Wow, man. Yeah, I agree.
But I think it has to do with they occupied a different realm in their life than a normal roaster would have.
It was a weird thing. Look, hey, mission accomplished. People are talking about it, and they're still talking about it. We're talking about it 4 days later. It took attention away from that god-awful Unfrosted movie. I love everything Jerry Seinfeld has ever done, except Unfrosted. That debuted on Netflix just before the Tom Brady roast. So, they want to get people talking. They want to get people to watch Netflix. So be it. People will be signed up to Netflix in advance of the league announcing next week that Netflix is going to have a couple of the Christmas games, if Boomer Esiason's information is accurate.
Mike, do you think that Austin Rivers was on the money? This is a ham-handed segue too. When he said that he can take 30 players right now in the NBA and throw them in the NFL, and you can't take 30 NFL players and put them in the NBA. Because I agree with him. They're all going to play cornerback, wide receiver, safety, and tight end, but you can find 30 players in the NBA who could play those positions.
I don't know about that, because you're not talking about the same kind of speed, explosion, and agility that you see on a football field. I think the deeper question is, if you rewind the clock back to youth level, when kids are picking which direction they're going to go with their athletic careers, how many NFL players could have gone basketball and percolated all the way to the NBA? How many basketball players could have gone NFL and percolated all the way to the top of the sport? I don't know. But you're talking about very different skills. Chris made a great point yesterday. TJ Ford was at Texas when he was there. He came out to the football field one day, and he was boy among men trying to run routes and catch passes. It's a different use of the body. Everything about the sports it's just fundamentally different. You can be a great athlete. How far can you get in either sport? So
then you take a guy like Nate Robinson. He was a top tier corner at the University of Washington, and he was a great guard in the NBA. I mean, it's funny. Belichick told me this a long time ago when my kids were playing youth sports and were starting out in football. I had a 7-year-old who was just starting, and he got lit up by a 9-year-old because it was in weight limits. And he's like, I don't know. My body's still vibrating. I don't get this. So I said, okay, you want to retire for this year and come back next year? So I talked to Bill. I'm like, hey, I know we're not supposed to do this whole thing. You never quit, but I don't want the sport ruined for him if he's not interested in going. And I think it's really hard to preach physical toughness to 7-year-olds. I'm just not signing up for that. You get it later on, plenty. And he goes, look, football, you could start that at any time. Basketball, hockey, golf, all those other sports. Baseball, it takes years to get good. I can take anybody who's an athlete and just have them play football. It takes no time. So no.
Well, look how he put receivers at corner and corners at receiver and moving guys around and Swiss Army knife type players. Yeah.
Stephen Neal off the wrestling mat. And, you see guys, Australian rules football or rugby players. Well, that's not really.
I think we all pick our paths if we have any athletic ability when we're young, and the best players gravitate to the thing they're the best at. That typically is what happens. You go out onto a football field, you get popped, you don't like it. You get popped, you like it. How you react in those moments is where you go to where you're the best. The real tragedy is how many guys picked the wrong sport, where they could have been a pro in the other sport, and they picked the one where it fizzled out before they got there. You know what? I got to go.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's noon time. That was awesome.
The thing you wanted me for, we didn't even get to. Private equity.
What's it mean?
Well, all it means is they're going to be able to sell off pieces of the team and raise some money. But when you look at how teams get passed from owner to owner, you're going to have this percentage that is always there. And you're going to have these private equity firms that may have a lot more influence behind the scenes. If they're allowed to hold pieces of multiple teams and up to 30% of a team can go to a private equity fund, you're going to have some people who are hiding behind the curtain who we don't even know who they are, who might have influence over who gets to buy a team, who doesn't. It's going to be something that we need to play out over time, but it's going to change a lot of things. It's going to migrate away from the mom and pop shop. Right now,
will it control spending more? Because I think we see that with the Boston Red Sox to a degree, the Fenway Sports Group, and satisfying these different entities that are part owners of the teams.
That's the real question. How much of the full discretion that owners currently have of their businesses? Because I know, like in Pittsburgh, you've got the minority shareholders that are always trying to tell Art Rooney what to do, and he tells them, piss up a rope, basically. How much more influence will the private equity funds have over these decisions? And when you have one fund that's got ownership interest in multiple teams, they may be opening another Pandora's box here, all in the name of gimme, money, gambling, private equity, gimme, more. Everybody wants more.
All right, colonoscopy, dermatology, private equity, NBA. We hit it all. See you, buddy.
Right,
Thank you.
Go. Thanks. Bye.